What is up, WinJet community? Happy Money Thursday. I almost said Money Friday, man. Goodness gracious, the week has been a little bit more a little bit more hectic than normal because of obviously this week is launch week with the infrastructure websites. But I'm sitting here with my main man, Mr. Anthony Garcia. What is up, my friend?
Chris, man, excited to be with you this morning, dude. Let's bring it to everybody.
Right. Let me turn it up a couple notches. Just I don't know if people understand this game we play. That Anthony and I play. We play this game called Let's Win, and we're gonna raise it up. So, a lot of respect for you in the game of sales because that's obviously where you come from in the world, and that's where my heart is. And there's not a lot of salespeople, I guess you would say, that I actually endorse because of the whole methods and the techniques and tactics that people use to try to convince someone to do something they don't want to do. But you live and die by the same type of core values that I do. And all we do is we diagnose the problem, we understand the situation, and we give them a proper recommendation. It's really that simple. It's all about sharing that vision. So, guys, if you don't know who this guy is, you got to pay attention. Congratulations on all your success with your book, Catapulting Commissions, turned into, obviously, a podcast. You had me on. You came on my show, blew it up a couple of things. But I guess we can kind of start with a little bit of your journey of why the podcast, why the message, and what you obviously are trying to accomplish with your show.
Yeah, man. So the message of Catapulting Commissions was really, I was frustrated with the presence of sales training and sales development in the personal growth and development community. Some people were regurgitating antiquated techniques, and others were given a fallacy of how easy it is to be successful in this industry. So that was a problem I wanted to solve. I was like, okay, let me identify and just create to somebody who's like me. Like I wasn't a natural salesperson. I picked it up early, so it wasn't that I needed to hear, hey, here's how you say this, here's the talk track, here's the script. It was more of a mental thing for me. And so that was the concept of Catapulting Commissions, was how do I get into someone's mental mind frame? How do I shift that mind frame for a mind frame for sales? I can teach the skills later, but let's do that. So that was the book. The podcast, with all honesty, Chris, I was social media irrelevant for 3 years before I launched my book, meaning I had deactivated Facebook, barely checked LinkedIn, wasn't on IG. I was just like, I'm not going to do this. And I was never really into the clicks. Like I never had here's this social media click I'm a part of. Here's this social media. I was just irrelevant. I was like, you know what? I'm going to launch a book. I'm going to launch a podcast under the book title solely because I wanted to create my own media. And two, I wanted to interview successful salespeople. That's it. I knew I wanted to spend more time because my path to learning was I learned from people. Man, I learned from you when I was on your show and you were on mine. I've had some amazing guests in the show, and each guest I leave and I tell people, I'm like, I know this is a show now that has thousands of downloads and I got a following. That's great. But the principles, it's selfish. I'm interviewing you because I want to learn what you're doing.
Right.
So that was it, man. I wanted to start my own show solely so I could interview people and create a media following. And little by little, man, I ended up getting a fan base of people who listen to the show, subscribe to the show, comment to the show, message me, and it's been a wild ride since then.
And it's been fun watching you grow with the show. I mean, I remember when I went on your show, it's not like you weren't skilled at what you did, but I'm talking about the frame of questioning that you use on your show is very similar to what the framework is supposed to be when you're, I guess, in a sales approach. And that's why I love what I do in podcasting, because I'm just displaying exactly what I've done my whole career and getting to the core and the root and the nucleus of an individual and story and extracting that information for the listeners. And that you do a beautiful job at that. Beautiful job at that.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And it's real funny when people reach out to me and say, hey, man, do you have a sales script? I've said, hey, just listen to a podcast interview.
Right.
And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, it's honestly listening, reframing, redirecting. And if I haven't got the information I want yet, asking it in a different manner, not in a sleazy way, but just having a conversation and dialogue, because nobody feels like they're being sold. And I love it. I love the concept of podcasting. I love the concept of broadcast journalism. I think I joked with you in the show. I started in college in radio. Enjoy doing radio. Wanted to get into broadcast journalism, and then didn't want to relocate outside of the greater Los Angeles area to get like an entry level job. Too ugly to beat out some people for the alley limelight. So I was like, you know what, man, I'm going to get into sales, make a ton of money, and I'm going to create my own show down the road. So that's where I'm at, bud.
I'm laughing because I can't stop laughing at this. But remember when I married for you popped on your show and I was like, look, he's got a face for radio, right? So, but it was a voice for radio. I said the same thing to Adam. He's like, what?
Yeah.
I was like, this guy's got a great voice. I was like, goodness gracious, this is phenomenal. I have one of those raspy voices. Sounds like someone's like holding my nose when I'm like speaking,
man.
But it is what it is.
No, man, Adam has a great voice for radio. When I joined him on his podcast and he started speaking, I was like, holy wow, dude, this is your voice is amazing, man. You're like the voice of God coming from the skylight.
Like, hello. And it makes it even worse. He's very stoic, and it just it's perfect voice for him. So
yes.
And like obviously with the messaging that you do have and you growing with your listenership and engagement, what were some of the major challenges? I guess we can kind of speak to some of the newer podcasters out there. What are some challenges that you had to overcome when you're, I guess, in trying to increase your listenership and open up more engagement with your listeners?
I think one, there's that fear of putting yourself out there, right? It's like it's a fear of putting yourself out there, a borderline imposter syndrome, right? I mean, I think my first episode, I remember looking at my stats in the first episode like a week later, and 11 downloads, 12 downloads, 4 were mine. So it was the rest were my mom, my wife. I mean, it wasn't a success. But it's lonely, right? When you look at those stats in the beginning and you're like, man, no one's listening to the show. I can't catch a hook. I can't get an audience. I had a guest reach out when my show was early who reached out and point blank told me, yeah, your show's too small time for me. Reach out to me when you're bigger. And I'm like, I got to be honest with you, man. There's different ways to tell me no, but that's not it. I promise. I'm not calling you now.
I thought, what's funny? I was just having Jerome Myers. Do you know Jerome?
Yeah.
Love Jerome.
Myers.
I have a folder on my desktop, and I've had it for years. It's called Flex.
Okay.
So when people flex on me, and during my career they have flex, I screenshot that, put the name and the date, and put it in that folder. So when we do cross paths at one point, and you invite me to be on your show or whatever because I don't ask people to go on their show. I get introduced, and it's all done my referrals and stuff like that, right, through the communities. And I'm going to read it out loud. Like, this is what you said to me in an email.
I love it, man.
And it's not the flex back or snap back at someone. It's just to remind people, don't step on someone when you think that they're beneath you. And the most successful people I have ever met, I'm talking about the ones that are so liquid it's ridiculous. They don't ever kick anybody while they're down, and that's why I really think it was confusing to me when I kind of catch that type of stuff. So I don't know, but it's all about just trying to figure out how can you leverage and then focus on increasing that listenership by volumes. And it's done, but that's why it led us to this community, because I noticed it with podcasting. And, luckily for myself and my show, I had built in within the contracts when I sold those 2 programs to the trade schools that they took care of a lot of the editing and all the show notes and whatnot, at least a framework and giving me an idea, because all the, that's how I was training those 13,000 reps. This. Right. So, and I noticed that with your outsourcing and your people like us, we're businessmen that just happen to have a show. And we're
100%.
So we're not starting off with a message on a thing and then trying to grow a business. We kind of did it backwards. So we want to serve the community in 2 different ways. There's ones that are 7-figure earners or 8 figures, no matter whatever the level they are, and teach you how to leverage podcasting that could be your calling card. And because if you want to market and advertise an email list, like how much percent open rate? It's 100% open rate on a podcast. You subscribe to your show, bing, they got you. So that's one side. The other side is that someone that's just has a really good message and they want to learn the broadcasting way and want to get themselves out there and to pass that visual test, that first snapshot of someone's past. I'm like, okay, they're legit. That's pretty cool. The graphics, it's pretty cool the way it's set up, the onboarding process. So my question for you is this: for both sides of that, how much do you put into, I guess, kind of like really sit down and figure out if someone reach out to you to come on the show, do you remember when you were very first starting off and were like, I'm going to give them a shot?
Yeah. So, there were some times in the beginning of the show where I had people reach out to get on the show, and you know what? I didn't have a show I didn't have a guest in the hopper, and I had to make a decision. Right. Is this person going to provide value to the show, or would I do better off doing a monologue show? So, I do a light screening on people, and I bring them on. Even so much so now, right? At this point, I've turned guests away because I don't think the message aligns with what I'm trying to deliver to my audience. I try to keep it a really narrow focus. But I will say this: the power and the benefit of a podcast. You are your own media company. You can build trust instantly. So much so, last night I delivered a keynote to a women's networking group out of Monterey Bay in California. And one of the questions that came up at the end of the keynote was, Anthony, I understand and I love the concept of catapult to commissions. I love the sales philosophies you teach. But in an e-commerce digital world, how do I build that line of trust? How does somebody trust me? And my response was, they have to hear you. They have to see you long before you ever ask, buy my product, buy my service. It's true. Podcasting gives that to you on a consistent basis, so much so that I put 2 shows out now a week. I almost was going to do 3, but I was like, okay, let me slow down here a little bit for my bandwidth. But it's people have to see you, hear you, know you, and all of that is building trust. And here's the beautiful thing about it, Chris. You and I are talking today. It's morning for me. When we wrap up and finished it, I'm going about my day. I'm getting business done. I'm doing things. People will watch the show tomorrow, later, the next day. And it happens with podcasts. I've had people reach out to me and say, hey, I just heard this show from 6 months ago. Love what you said. Sometimes, for the most part, I remember what I say because my message is pretty uniform. But there's times where we go off on a tangent. I'm like, oh, I did say that. That's right. Glad that stuck with you. So it builds the trust and familiarity. And earlier, you said, we're business people that have a podcast. And for anyone who's launching a podcast or in the newer stage of podcasts, I'll tell you exactly what I did from day one. When I launched a podcast, I knew immediately the podcast wasn't going to replace my business. It wasn't going to replace it within the first month. It wasn't going to replace it in the first 3 months. I knew I wanted to build something. So I looked at the podcast and said, okay, what's my investment to the podcast? What's the investment of my time? What's the investment? What am I going to lose by spending time? And from day one, I outsourced everything on my podcast. Other than me speaking, I have an editing team. I have a show notes writing team. I have a marketing team. I don't do any of that because, truth be told, I don't have the time for it. And by outsourcing it, I looked at it and said, okay, how many clients do I have to generate from the show to break even on this?
Bam, there it is.
It didn't take long to generate clients from the show to break even on the podcast production. And I think that's one area that people get stuck with new podcasting. They want to do everything, or they're afraid. Someone comes and gives them a quote. Hey, here's how much it's going to be a month to produce your show. And you're like, oh man, 500, 800, 1,000, 400, 300, whatever the number is. You're like, you're looking at it. You're like, man, if I do this 12 months, I mean, that's 6, 7, 10 grand for the year. Right. So I looked at it and I was like, okay, if my production is 10 to 12 grand for the year, I really need to generate one client.
Yep. If
I can't generate one client on a 10 to 12 grand production, I shouldn't be in this.
Love this, man. I love the way that you're saying this, because this is what I'm talking about. We're business people that have a podcast show. Okay. But we think about it as a business, and how can we generate and earn more and figure out how can I break even? And then from breaking even, once you can stop the bleeding and outsourcing, and you see that as an investment, that's the switch though. Most people see it as, oh, I don't know. I just use it as a hobby. I don't really need to be able to do this. But you don't realize whatever you do for a living, they're going to see you in a different light, and that's going to drop all the resistance from them being able to reach out to you. I was on your show. I can't tell you how many people still to this day send me messages. I heard you on Anthony Garcia's show. Blown away by feedback. Blown away. And that's all it does. It's the way that we're approaching the show, because we see, okay, this is an investment, and I know your zone of genius, and that's why you outsourced it. My zone of genius is there, and I stay within that lane. If I step out of that lane and veer off a little bit, I suffer the repercussions. Right? I 100%. Lose energy. I lose time. I lose money. I lose respect for myself. I'm like being irritated. I'm like, why did I do this? You know what I mean? Like I already knew my lesson, but what I want to do is I want to continue to keep pouring into things with all the energy that I'm trying to pour into it. I can't do that if I'm outstretched in so many other areas. And I love that you just said it that way.
You know, it's such a business mind, right? We're such control freaks, right? We want to have control of everything. And I just spoke with my assistant Tara literally yesterday, and Tara's been with me almost from the beginning. And I reached out to her and said, Tara, here's a few additional tasks. For whatever reason, I decided that I was going to do these in my business. And right now, they are costing me business if I spend time to do it, or they're costing me time. So I found myself on a Sunday evening, because I had such a busy week with work, that I was doing stuff for the business that I was like, you know what? This is stupid. So then I was going to go outsource to someone else. Then I just called my assistant, Tara. I said, hey, can I hire you for additional hours? I need this, and this done. Her response, she was like, I've been waiting for you to say this. I was wondering if you were outsourcing it to somebody else, or how come it wasn't on my desk yet. And I'm like, done deal. Take it. I look at Catapulting Commissions, the business, the brand, wholeheartedly as something that I'm building for a long haul. And when people get into catapulting, or when people get into podcasting, or people get into, hey, I'm going to build a business, right? It's the immediate, like, how can I make my first $100,000 in 1 month? How can I make so much money so fast? And so they're so set on trying to bring this money in right away. For me, it's how can I create $1 billion system first? And over time, the system will pay. The system will grow. There will be the $100,000 a month. It's not going to be in the beginning, because every dollar I make, every dollar, and this is true story, every dollar I've made from catapulting commissions, whether it's book sales, courses, coaching, speaking, 100% gets reinvested back into the business.
I love that. Ding.
That's why graphics are getting better, video editing is better, by assistants are getting better, copyright's getting better. I just had a massive new podcast website page update, should be up next week. I mean, everything goes back to the business. I don't take anything out of it. So much so I don't take anything out of it. I forgot I need to pay corporate taxes on a corporation, which I had a friend. But
don't forget that. Don't forget that, man. Don't forget that. They'll come get you. You know what I mean? So
they sure did, man. I looked at my business account, I looked at my P&L, and I'm like, man, I literally reinvested every dollar. Holy crap, dude. April 15th, I owe the state of California some tax money. Yep. Well, that's going to come from, it's a mistake I made and I learned, but I would do it again, because every dollar truly was reinvested into the business.
I love this, man. This is a great conversation. I mean, all the conversations are great when I'm spending time with you and holding space, but I think that this is something that people really do need to hear, not just from my mouth. Like the WinWin Effect, that's an entity of me, my brand, right? So that's obviously a sub label of it. So when the WinWin Effect, I started a business, an LLC.
Yeah.
And I treat it like that. And so you just said that. It's the same thing I've done with the WinWin Effect. All the money I've ever made from the deals from interviews and setting up maybe that they'll hire me for certain things with aligning sales processes and whatnot. When I started to gain more exposure, because I've been, behind the scenes for so long, that when they started to see and feel the value, they went, okay, great. So all that money and revenue I was earning, I dumped back into it. And here we are with Linject Studios. So people go, well, you're building a network. I'm not building a network. I'm building a community that has a place to go to not have to outsource 7 things. They can go to one spot, and all you're paying for is you're investing into yourself and your show for $100 a month. There's nothing else that you have to buy. All the other resources, what I've done is I brokered these deals with all the high-level influencers that if you went to their website and try to buy or invest into whatever they're doing, you can't get it for the price that we got for you. And I'm solving the number one problem, teaching people how to monetize. Day one. Like I almost sit back, and it's kind of like everything we do, and it's the same philosophy we use in sales. I put people in a position they can't tell me no. You can't tell me no. So, and that's what irritates me with podcasting. I see so much of raping people on show notes and edits and audio and video clips, and they're really truly becoming rich of not even owning a product or patentable or anything, and because it's supply and demand. People need these clips. Well, that's why you don't see a lot of those clips on social media anymore for me. because everyone's doing them. I'm going to do something different. We're going to do something. And how we're able to accomplish that is together. And that's where I love that you're dumping all that back into, the getting better graphics. And what's happened, and I don't know if people understand this, you get some of the huge names are coming on your show right now, and because what you're done is you're elevating others through your microphone, through that beautiful voice of yours and the value, and you're elevating others, and that's what that's doing is attracting higher level type of people. And that's what it's all about, man. Don't focus on trying to make money. You focus on trying to make money, you'll lose money.
Absolutely.
If you focus on how quickly can I make an impact with individuals and change lives, that right there, the money will come. I'm perfect example of it. Money will come. Money comes on how the world views you. That's how they value you through how much your net worth is. If you look at it that way, it's different, right? So raise your value, raise your awareness, raise you. So I loved it. Everything you do, man, it just is ridiculous because I see you on not where you currently are or where you're going to go with your show. And it's just going to be beautiful to watch, man. Huge fan.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it, dude. I do appreciate it. And what you said about the show getting bigger guests, I made some money on the show. I made some money launching the brand. Right. And one of the first things I was like, you know what? I'm going to trademark catapulting commissions. Like it's going to be mine. And I mean, that was probably one of the first earliest things. Took a long time. Trademark filing came in. Love it. Change the logo. Catapulting commissions trademark. Mine. Can't use it. Then the outreach to the guests on the show were, I had some bigger guests in the beginning that I knew personally that I wanted to build some credibility. And every guest I piggyback when I introduced new guests. Now the guest on the show, I mean, I had John Lee Dumas, who's on fire. I mean, he runs a 7, 8, 9-figure business. I mean, been on stage with Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi, some of these big guys that he is directly connected with. Rory Vaden, New York Times bestseller, Take the Stairs. Show's going to release soon. Sam Taggart, who created the door-to-door sales experience. That show's going to drop soon. Marcus Chan, dude. And if you don't follow Marcus Chan, he's on LinkedIn. Love that guy. Dude, he is a beast, man. LinkedIn named him as one of the top influential salespeople. And I had him on the show, and then that show's going to release here, I think, in about 3 weeks. I left. I was like, holy crap, dude. There's very few salespeople I meet that I'm like, I need to level my game up. I got off the call with him. I was like, dude, no matter what catapulting commission's done, it can be better because that guy's crushing and killing it. But these guests have these massive followings. And here's how I know the show is changing. One, people like that are accepting my invite to be on the show. Two, the comments that I'm getting and people who are reaching out to me. I mean, I have people reaching out to me that I've been a fan of theirs. I mean, I've read books from hundreds of thousands of sales books. And when I see some of these authors, and I'm not going to say their names yet because we haven't put the outreach yet, but are starting to comment on my post, starting to come into my social media network. Oh yeah, you best believe Tara and I have a plan. Okay, we're going to reach back out. I'm gonna get these guys on my show because they're going to continue to level the network up. There's still one guest that Peter Voog, who runs the Massive Game Changers Academy. We haven't had a chance to get our calendars connected, but every time I message and connect with him, I'm like, dude, you are still a guest I want to get on the show. And every time I tell him that, he comes and on his show, he just booked Elon Musk on his show. And I'm like, God, I got to get you on the show, dude. I even told him like, hey man, you tell me the time. I don't care. 3 a.m, 11 p.m. on a Friday night, whatever it is, dude, I will be there to make that show happen. So, but it's building that credibility. And here's the thing. It didn't start on show 1. It didn't start on show 5. I couldn't tell you exactly what show it started to change, but I can tell you when the mentality changed. It was just the more reps you put in, the better you get. The more people you speak to, the more you hear. And at a certain point, I just had to say, screw it, dude. If my show has 5 downloads, 500 downloads, 5,000 downloads, 500,000 downloads, I'm going to deliver the same value with the same energy every time. And when you make that mental shift, dude, the show just grows. Yeah.
Just sit back and reap the benefits. It comes from your whole approach. I loved it when you just said that because you mentioned, well, we get the comments from some of these people that you used to, I'm not going to say idolize. That wouldn't be the right word, but looking up, it's like, oh, hey, I recognize your success, and I think that's beautiful. Like, wow, what a great job. That's what high achievers do. We're motivated through that. So it's either pain or pleasure. But we're people like us, like when we look at things, I love those comments, and those comments make it worth it. Because it's like we might be on just right now. We'll be having a conversation, and someone might hear something, and I don't know for what it might be. It might be just a tonality or the way it's approached and the way that we would say it. It might penetrate all the way down and hit them where they've never been hit before, right in their soul. And they go, I'm going to make a switch, and and then if they do something else and they manifest the life of their dreams and they stop doing what they're doing, that's enough for us.
100%, man.
That's enough.
There used to be a saying, right? Work hard until your idols become your competition, right? And to me, there's some truth in that, but I don't ever view anybody as competition. Like I don't view some of these sales guys as competition. I'm like, hey, dude, the table's big. I just want a seat next to you. That's it.
Right. Yeah.
I'm hungry just like you. And when some of these guys comment back and honestly, everything that I teach, I mean, I run the podcast. I run the podcast guests, and I do a weekly video blog that's not on the podcast right now, and that's what gets added. We can do the production on that later. But I also run a weekly video blog that's original content every week, 6 to 8 minutes. That weekly video blog that I introduce in addition with the podcast is starting to draw people. But what I love in that weekly video blog, the original content of sales training, sales leadership, it's all my original thoughts. I don't go and pull stuff. I don't go and say, hey, I want to see what Tony Robbins said. Or, hey, I want to see what Gary Vee said. I don't give a crap. What I do is say, okay, here's what's going on in my world, in my business, things that are on my mind, and here's the teachable moment. And when I'm teaching that, and some of these guys are commenting back like, hey, man, that's such a great, valuable point. Yeah. Or they're adding additional value. It's like, it's just that little validation. Yeah, I'm onto something. Yeah, I'm going to keep going on this. So I love when the community of successful people embrace each other. Now, like you said, you have that flex folder. I don't call it the flex folder. I do have screenshots of the comments that haven't been so nice, and right. I've had plenty of them. I've been ridiculed. I've been called the Tony Robbins wannabe. You name it, man. And people tell me different things, and I'm like, cool. You know what? I've never responded to one person except for the very first one. And I just put, hey, man, I'm so excited you comment on this. Not because you think I'm full of crap, but because now I know my social media posts are reaching a network of people I have never met before. Love it.
Well, I love it. I do respond, though. I do say one thing, and I do it on purpose. And it changes the way it diffuses them. And it's just like we use it in sales. And Nina, thank you so much for the kind words. Just I saw it pop across the screen.
Hi, Nina.
So I approach it this way. I appreciate your judgment. I hope things are going to work out for you one day. And if so, I see it at the top.
That's it.
That drives people nuts.
Oh, man.
That's like taking gasoline and dumping it on a fire for someone.
Yeah.
And I don't respond to anything else after that. But it's not about, what I'm trying to do is I want you to see the hidden message in what I just said to you. I hope things will work out for you.
Yeah.
I'm just putting back love on you. I mean, I said this with Justin Breen the other day, that people, haters and whatnot, I used to view haters differently. I view them now as that they don't know how to tell me or express the emotion of, I guess being not as factuated wouldn't be the right word, or of affection towards whatever I've done in achievement. So they much rather do is they would hate on that situation because it's easier for them to point fingers on why they're not successful or why they're not doing this. I mean, that's why people that I love when authors come on my show, I talk about books a lot. I mean, not all leaders are readers, but all readers are leaders. You know what I mean? Like those ones take it to another level because you don't realize how powerful your mind is. The information you're learning and reading, you don't know that you're actually filing that in your subconscious mind. So when you're stuck in a moment when it's like a survival moment for you and it's like a heat-seeking missile's coming at you, you're going to pull from that subconscious mind that information and drop it in a conversation. And that's powerful. So powerful.
100%, which is why I don't allow negative thoughts to exist in my mind. And if I do, they got to get out. And I've talked about it on the show, and I believe in a power circle of influence. I just recently, in one of my business ventures, got a new mentor. And the mentor has been with me for, I think maybe 6 weeks now. I've known him for 9 years, almost 10 years now. But he recently, we had some structure, some alignment, and so now he's more involved in what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. He has challenged me consistently, and to the point where I haven't been challenged this way in a long time.
That's good.
And one of the things he said, we recently talked. He said, "Look, man," he says, "you are such a smart, talented guy." He says, "But sometimes when you're so smart and talented, and you're here, your thoughts, if you allow them to exist for a second longer, dude, they're going to impact you." And I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? You are right, man. I don't, until that conversation, man. I mean, I've had some mentors and people who've challenged me, but this was just like in my face, point blank gut check. And we had a conversation, and at the end, we had a difference of opinion. At the end of the conversation, I looked at him and I said, you know what? With all honesty, man, I know that this may have been a little intense conversation, and he's a East Coast guy, so he's pretty in your face and doesn't hold back. And I'm California laid back as can be, so it was a little tense. And at the end, I said, you know what? I appreciate this 100%. And I told him, I said, you can challenge me. We can have these conversations any day of the week, because one, I want to grow. And the moment that I don't want to grow, dude, I don't need to be running my company. I don't need to be in a position of leadership. I don't need to be someone's boss. Just get out of the way, because if I refuse to grow, I can't do this. And so I embrace that. But if I spin that back to the podcast world, every guest that comes on the show forces me to grow. And it's to the point where, I record in batches. So I say, okay, here's the 2 days out of this quarter that I'm going to record. And I try to line up as many interviews as I can. And I love it because I'm so positive after that. And then, a few weeks go by and I haven't recorded somebody, I haven't spent time interacting with somebody, and negative thoughts creep in. And I'm like, okay, I need to space this out, because it's nice to speak with somebody who challenges you to think at a level that only great, successful people do. Look at this, man. Podcasting puts your name out there. It puts you out there to be criticized. It puts you out there to get ridiculed. And here's the thing to think about it, dude. Nobody that's doing better than you is going to ridicule you.
Oh, yeah,
no one that's successful, no one that's making the money you want, no one that has the lifestyle you want is going to look back at you and say, hey, you suck. Don't do that. Why? Because they were once there. Everything that we're good at, we have to remember we were a beginner. Yep. Everything that is successful, we started with the failure. Podcasting's no different. So
yeah, and you can't rush it. You can't rush it. And
no.
The only thing you can do is figure out a way of getting there faster through impact. And what can you take in? And you need to go through it, just like anything else in life. I mean, I didn't get to building businesses just overnight. I mean, I did that from years and years and years and putting in my hours in corporate America and realizing there's so much more out there that I can actually accomplish. And I felt like I was a big fish in a little pond. I need to go to a bigger pond, right? So, and that bigger pond held me accountable to leveling up. So the people you mentioned, you're bringing onto the show, you keep elevating yourself up because it's another way of thinking. You talk about that negative thoughts. It's a good mentor, by the way, of saying that, because you let that thought sit there. You can't control your thoughts, but you can direct them, suckers. So you direct them. You got to be aggressive with those thoughts. Why am I thinking this? Why do I keep thinking this? I'm so aggressive with myself, and I have to be, because that's what motivates me. Like if you give me this whole oh, Chris, you need to do it. You're not going to get through to me. So yeah. I'm so kind to myself. I'm kind to myself now. I used to not be kind to myself. I'll say a lot of bad words to myself. Right? It's like you're such a freaking idiot. Something. No, I'm like, wow, what an opportunity to be able to learn something new. Oh, I'm so blessed for this. It's a different approach.
I whisper to myself, character building. Every time I find myself in something like, all right, this is where you build character, Anthony. And I've talked to my wife, because there's certain times, things come up, and I always say, we're the bigger person. And one day she looked at me, and my wife, she runs a business here locally in town. And she had dealt with some adversity. I'm like, this is, we're the bigger person. This is character building. She was like, I don't want to be the bigger person.
I knew she was going to say that. I knew she was going to say that. I knew just for a little bit of all the conversation we've had about you. I knew she was going to say something like that. I knew it.
Yeah. I laughed. I chuckled. I was like, you feel better now? She's like, yeah, I feel better. I'm like, all right, now be the bigger person. Because we in order to be successful and grow, there's action, there's skill, but it's first the mindset. And the mindset is simply saying, I'm not going to allow these negative thoughts to exist. I'm not going to allow petty things to hold me down. I'm not going to allow failures to prevent me from staying the course that I'm going on, because we all fail. We fail multiple times. I mean, I always say this, but I have to remind people, the more catapulting commissions grow, the more failures I make. I mean, there's things that I've dropped the ball on multiple times.
Right.
And I look at it, I'm like, okay, the only time that failure is permanent is when I quit or give up. And I'm not doing that. So fail, accept it, grow, move forward. Simple as that, man.
Sometimes in just your wife, it's important to you got to remind people who you are. It's okay, you know, just like a lion. Think about a lion. A lion will have a hyena come up and steal his food and slap him in the face, do whatever. But then every once in a while, he's got to let people know. Okay, like, listen, dude, don't forget, I'll rip your head off. But it's just you're doing it in a way of knocking someone down to allow them to shed the layers to lift them back up. The military has that same type of thing. They break you down to parade rest to be able to now build on a solid foundation. And that's the same method I would use on a lot of situations in business. But I just want to, thank you so much for coming on, talking about your show, man. I mean, I'm so excited about the future with this community and obviously what we're doing. And if you're going to always see this guy's face, you're going to see me like somewhere around in the curtain somewhere. So I'm always going to be there, not the creepy guy. I'm like, peekaboo, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Having some fun.
Dude, well, I'm excited, man. I'm excited to get connected with WinJect. I mean, I've been a fan of yours from day one with the WinWin Effect. I mean, I love finding like-minded people that want to grow, right? Mm-hmm. Regardless of you and I, I mean, we are literally across the pond. I mean, we're 8 hours, 9 hour time difference, but you are a friend of mine, and it's a friend based on a growth that we want to see each other succeed. There's a level of success that we want to see happen for somebody. And when you feel that excited to see the people around you succeed, it creates a livelihood, a vision, a mood where you're like, I want to see others succeed. And you know what, man? If you're succeeding, I'm succeeding. It's almost like if you go back to the old basketball days, right? Larry Bird versus Magic Johnson. Everyone called them rivals. But if you ever watch,
they loved each other. They loved each other.
You watch the interview years later, and Larry and Magic were like, dude, I wonder if Larry shot 100 free throws after practice. Mm-hmm. I'm going to shoot 101. And Larry would say, I'm going to shoot 102. I mean, these guys, they loved each other over the competition of who's going to get better. It wasn't personal hatred. It's like, hey, you push me to get better. You push me to get better. And when you get connected with the WinJect community and you get connected with a group of people who are like-minded and growing, dude, it's just seeing people grow, man. I mean, you mentioned Justin, Jerome. I mean, some of these people, I look at them and fall, I'm like, man, they're growing. They're growing. I love it, dude. I got to grow. Right. Because I don't want my relationship with you to be, man, I've grown, Anthony hasn't. Boom. And when you find a group of professional colleagues and friends that are growing at that rate, where now it's not a requirement, it's a want. I want to grow because I want to provide value to this relationship. That's what you get with WinJect, man.
Right. You got to, and thank you so much for saying that. It does mean a lot to me coming from you, because I look at every guest or every, I guess, friendship, because when they come on the show, you know how it is. We've been on all these other shows. We go on a show and it's like that. We'll come on. There's no curiosity with the questions. There's no like a genuine feel that they actually give a shit about the questions. And it's kind of like you never hear from them again. Right. But and that's why I invite the right people to come onto the show for the listeners so I can feel what they need from me and what they obviously need from the guests. So I look at every person that comes on my show, and now within the community of WinJect, I look at now as a shared legacy. I'm just as much part of your success as you're part of mine. It doesn't matter. Like, together we're going to win. But that's the missing word in a lot of situations. People are out to get. And I hear a lot of people say, I'm here to serve. But you're only here to serve and the people that are actually buying what the hell you're serving. But if you're doing it with not trying to get something from it, that's why, obviously the entry barrier, there's no entry barrier. There's just what you're doing is you end up paying for the system. You're paying $94. That's it. Cheap.
Yeah.
And why I did that? Because I know what these people are charging. It's ridiculous. Stupid. It's just, I was like, man, people just want to buy success. You can't buy it.
No.
It's earned.
100%, man. Success is 100% earned, man. There is no buying. There is no fast track. There's no fast pass to success. There's no shortcut to getting to the top, man. It is one step at a time. And it's one step forward, 3 steps backwards, taking the one step over and doing it again. And eventually your trajectory goes up. But don't think that it's a straight linear shot. You definitely get shot back down. We all do it. I'm sure you do it. I've done it. We've all been shot back down. We're like, man, all right. And, you know, there's, like I said, I've woken up times where I'm like, God, that was a rough day yesterday. That was a rough week. Let's get up. Let's go at it again. We're all there. So,
yeah, I love it, man. I love you. You're just phenomenal, dude. So much that, you know, we're going to do. We'll have other conversations. I could talk to you forever. And I know that's probably later than we initially set out for. But I mean, you start your day not knowing what's going to happen, and it turns out better anyway because you're putting out there's so much good in the world. You know, it's always about raising other people's vibrations to raise yours and trying to provide them the resources that they wouldn't have accessible because of, you know, where they currently are and making, because we're trailblazers. The way I look at that, we blaze a trail. We got to where we are right now. Our job is to pull people along with us and saying, I can cut some light years off your learning curve. Here's what to look out for. When you pass this street, there's a scary old man there. Don't go down that hallway. Go over here. Like, right? I mean, that's what it's all about. Like, because it's success is all about when you're exposed to that other way of thinking. Yeah. And then once you're exposed, then it's up to you to make a choice. So 100%. I challenge everyone listening to this. And if you are a part of the community, or you know someone that wants to start a podcast, or you want someone that does have a show and they want to say, hey, I don't know how to gain more exposure, share it with them. And join the community so that way you can get the links to be able to monetize and actually earn something from it. So guys, I appreciate you. Anthony, I appreciate you as well. Guys, I'll take care. Be well, be you, be great. I see you guys same time, same bad channel on Monday. And I'll see you guys at the top. Winject.com. Let's get it. Peace. Thanks, Anthony.
Thanks, Chris.
This podcast is part of the Winject Studios Network, where podcasters come together to focus on community, collaboration, and collective impact. For more information on how to apply to join the network, go to www.winject.com. That's WINJECT.com. If you're ready to make a difference through podcasting, then we're ready to see you